not risk adverse, but you've never gotten on a plane in your life.
I've gotten on a plane in my life. I just, didn't care for it.
Really?
I've flown. I flew down to Texas, and then we flew back when I was a kid.
Against your will, no doubt.
It was definitely against my will, but at that point in my age and whatnot, I don't think I was in a position to fight it.
So at what point do you think kids can put up a good fight and get listened to at that point?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I don't remember how old I was, but you have to be of age, at least I did, to where I could stay home by myself.
They don't let people do that now until they're like 18.
Right. So, I don't remember how old I was, but I was pretty young, and I was basically forced to go to. We flew into San Antonio, and yeah, I pretty much hated every second of the flying. It was terrible.
So you're opposed to it then, as you're opposed to it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your reasoning is because why?
Well, like I said, I'm terrified of heights. So what? Why go 30,000 feet into the air? That seems like a terrible. I don't like going on a 10-foot ladder.
Yeah, all right.
I'm going to go 30,000 feet in the air in a flying tin can? I don't think so.
Well, my advice would be order a whiskey and enjoy that bag of peanuts because it might be your last.
Well, see, now as an adult, I could probably, get drunk or do something even more drastic if I needed to fly somewhere. But as a child, you can't really do those sort of things.
Yeah, when are you heading out to the West Coast? Here's what you should do. You should try and do that Boss Hog drinking challenge.
The Boss Hog drinking challenge?
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
Or was it Ty Cobb?
Oh, no, it was, Boss Hog. It was, what's his name? Jesus. I can't think of his name now.
This baseball player was known to drink some say as many as 55, some say as many as 100 beers, and then played a double header.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
Wade Boggs is his name.
Yeah, that's it. I had 2 drinks last night and I was out, man. I cannot do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I had a nice cold beer here, and one was enough. It was a pretty strong IPA, and think about the Pacific Northwest. They try and see how many hops can we shove in this beer. And when I first moved here, I was all about it, and then you can definitely go overboard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Balance is a thing, and more is not always better. With that said, a really strong, thirst-quenching IPA at the end of a hard day is pretty nice.
Is that what is my brother like? He likes that stuff that's so strong I can't even smell it, much less drink it.
Well, he's a big Rasputin fan.
True.
That's a type of porter, I believe, or an imperial stout.
Yeah.
But, I had some Nikasi Brewing Company Maiden in the Shade.
Huh.
And it was pretty delicious. And I just want to give a shout out to Nikasi Brewing Company. If you guys want to start sponsoring this podcast, that's when I'll really hit my prime.
I'm sure they're listening, so we'll make sure we get that set up.
Yeah, I don't know why you're doing this, King, but that's actually my whole end game in this is I want a keg of beer delivered to my house at least every 2 weeks.
And then you can use some portion of it specifically during the podcast.
I'm not saying another word until I get the chicken.
See, I had a Not Your Father's root beer last night. I wouldn't mind a little sponsorship my way from the small town brewery here.
Yeah? I thought no ginger ale?
They didn't have any when I went to the store. I was a little disappointed. That's the summer drink, man. The Not Your Father's ginger ale.
See, I found, I drank a Thomas Kempler, I believe it's called, ginger ale. Mm. And I think it's superior to Not Your Father's.
An alcoholic one?
No. No
well,
alcohol.
That's a different story then.
I guess it's not superior at all.
Yeah, it's just a different story. You gotta try that Not Your Mother's iced tea, man.
Yeah, my mother never made iced tea, so
My mother
I'm sure.
never made iced tea either. I'm not
Sadly,
convinced my mother knows how to make iced tea, to be honest with you.
Yeah. She's a wonderful woman, but yeah, my mom never made iced tea growing up.
I'm sure if my mother's listening to this, she's disagreeing right now and probably talking about how she can make the best iced tea in the entire country, but I've never seen proof of this, so.
She may make a cameo appearance on this podcast if she hears this live.
That is a terrible idea, and that is why we don't do this live.
King's address is...
Yeah, we don't need to put that out there.
Yeah, I actually don't know what your address is. I don't know if other people do this, but like in my adult life, I've given up like remembering stuff like that.
Well, yeah.
Like I remember my own address, but people are like, "Oh, what's your zip code?" or "What's your?" I think I know my phone number, but
well,
you know, there's a whole bunch of like little pieces of data that I just don't have the energy for anymore.
Well, I understand from other people, like, I understand you not knowing my address. There's no reason to. You're 2,000 miles away from me, but you should probably be able to tell people your own mailing address.
Yeah, it took me about 6 months when I moved from the last place.
Yeah.
And, yeah, actually, I don't know. I'm still working on some coffee, but I don't think I know mine right now.
You just write it down on a piece of paper and keep it by the phone in case anybody, asks you. You're like, wait, here we go, I got it.
Well, you don't run into this much, but the rest of the world does. Old people giving you directions, like when you're trying to get somewhere, and you're just thinking, just give me the address, I'll just plug it into my phone. Like, don't try and draw me a map. Don't try and tell me verbally how to get there. Just give me the address.
Yeah.
The only other thing worse than that is, hey, just follow us there.
Oh, following people is the worst way.
I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Worst way to get anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, then you got the people who, like, insistently ride your ass if they're following you.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, the people like me. I'm, like, half a mile behind you. I'm like, I know how to get there.
If I'm following anybody, it turns out, like, Seinfeld trying to follow George Costanza to the cabin.
That
like,
stupid idiot.
What is that stupid idiot? He's got to drive 100 miles an hour, now the whole weekend's ruined.
He was making great time, though.
That's how I follow people. I'm always way behind them. They're flying like it's a race, and it's like, I'm supposed to be following you. Why would you drive like that?
Yeah, but I mean, it really just highlights a stupid process from the beginning.
Well, that's true.
And that's actually something that I wanted to get into today is, we love optimization, or at least the idea of it.
Sure.
Execution is always, execution. But, optimizing things, and it's interesting just to examine, rituals that we all have, some of which make sense, most of which don't.
Mm-hmm.
And, for example, I go to the grocery store probably 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'll run in and grab just a few items. I'm like, I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to, like, do a full shop right now. I'm just going to grab what I need and head out.
Yeah.
But, I mean, no matter what, you're looking at a half hour. You can literally go in to buy one thing. By the time you get there, by the time you park, by the time you pay and all that crap, you get out of there. Half hour, and that's being generous. It's probably more than that.
Yeah, for sure.
But, if I would have grabbed, say, done a full shop, maybe it would have been an hour. So, I'm still going to have to do that anyways, but the time wasted and the energy and the this sounds a little ridiculous, but it's true. The willpower, because we
Sure.
have a finite amount, and spending it on mundane, stupid shit like that nobody actually wants to do, but we all have to do.
Sure.
But then just compounding the problem and making it far worse by the fact that it's illogical because you're going there multiple times as opposed to being organized and doing it once.
I'm the worst at this, and this is probably the area of my life that I have on the least amount of lockdown right at the current moment. And a big part of that is because I work directly next to a grocery store. I mean, I walk there. It's 5 feet away, so I pretty much go to the grocery store almost every day because it's right there. But, regardless, it's a big waste of time.
I mean, because you're doing it on your lunch break, no doubt.
On my lunch or right after work, one of the two.
Well, I mean, you are probably the most ritualistic, kind of repetitive pattern type person that I know, and you have like zero tolerance for nonsense of any kind, so that actually kind of shocks me a little bit.
Well, like I said, it would be different if I didn't work right next to the place and I wasn't right there every day. Like, if I had to go out of my way to get there, even, 5 feet, I wouldn't do it. But since it's right there, like, I'm in and out really fast, and I don't consider it a big problem. But I used to, when I first moved here, I used to go every Sunday and do a full shop for like 2 weeks. I just would load up, get everything that I could possibly think I needed, and if I ran out of it within those 2 weeks, well, too bad, you didn't pace yourself well, and then I didn't have to worry about it again. I would spend like an hour doing it, but then that was it for 2 weeks. That was the system right there, man.
Well, the only thing that, the only contingency, I guess, is if you're big on, like, produce, then I can certainly understand wanting to go multiple times, because that stuff doesn't keep, but...
Yeah, sure.
Sadly, I think you eat no vegetables and I eat some.
Well, I was vegetables and I do not get along, but, and I generally go frozen fruit for smoothies and whatnot, so that part isn't really a problem for me typically, luckily.
I'm turning over a new leaf.
Oh, yeah?
A romaine leaf. No. But,
romaine leaf.
You know what I think's going on here? I think this whole thing's way more complex than you're letting on. My guess is there's some kind of breathtaking cashier at the local grocery store, and that is, in fact, why you're going to the grocery store every day.
I can assure you that is not the case. Actually, quite the opposite.
Sadly. No.
Actually, quite the opposite, so that is definitely not what's going on.
There's not some, like, I don't know, long, lean redhead from a Rossetti painting in there? No.
They are not working at a grocery store in Fenton, Missouri. That's just not happening.
That's unfortunate.
Well, that is what it is, but it's just me being lazy because the place is right next door to me. That's it. But
wouldn't you rather be using that time to, like, read or sketch on your lunch or something like that? Because, I mean, I would say I'm pretty protective of my lunch hour. I mean, that hour is a great opportunity to do something, but you got to be prepared.
Sure.
To do it. I read a lot of music, listen to a lot of music. I'll get in a workout. I might sit and meditate, or I love a good nap. But I mean, it's structured. It's not random.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that you're a big fan of packing it all in every moment that you can. And I know you've done a lot of sketching on lunch and stuff like that, and then you'll go home and paint. So why are you willing to give that process up?
Well, I'm not, but, generally speaking, the grocery store runs are after work. I stop by, I'm in there 5 minutes and I'm out, and,
5 minutes, really?
5 minutes. I literally will buy one or two things.
I don't know about that.
I go through the self-checkout, and then I'm out of there, I got this down to a science. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it that way, but my lunch hour I generally do protect, and I use my lunch hour to the fullest that I can every day. Usually, if I can stand it, this time of year it can be hard if it's 100 degrees outside, but usually I'll sit in my car and read for an hour. That's typically what I do. And this time of year, if it's too hot to do that, I will generally go and do some kind of errands that I need to do, or go down to Barnes & Noble and just wander around or do something. But generally I'll sit in my car and I'll read.
Huh.
So that's an uninterrupted hour, and I could get pretty far. I always have a book in my car, usually several, and it's a good use of it for sure. Good way to break up the day.
Yeah, that's you know how people get like they do bug out bags and stuff like that in case something goes down.
Sure.
Like, I'm pretty sure my bug out bag consists of like a Brahms score.
Sure.
Like, if something goes down, I'm gonna need this book. I mean, not entirely practical, but yeah, throwing a book in your car is probably one of the best things you can do.
Yeah,
because you never know when you're going to be stuck waiting somewhere with, waiting on a friend or something. You guys are meeting up and going to do something, or whatever. I mean,
there's a couple things I always have in my car. One is a regular book, a novel of some sort. Another is an art book of some sort that I can look at and not necessarily read. I mean, I read those too, but and then I always have. Most people wouldn't guess this about me, but I always have 2 baseball gloves and a baseball in my trunk at all times.
Boss Hog would be proud.
You never know when you're going to be stuck somewhere or have nothing to do and it's a perfect day and you're going to play a little catch.
Yeah, I mean, if you get stuck in gridlock, having a baseball and a glove is pretty decent idea.
To play catch with or just to throw at people?
No, just to play catch. I'm not that aggressive.
Stand on the roofs of cars and in traffic on 270 and play catch?
Yeah, you could literally be out there for a couple hours. You might as well have something to do.
That's true. That's true.
Hopefully the guy next to you has some kind of a grill set up, and then, I don't know, you run into that long, lean Gaelic woman from the grocery store. She's got bratwurst, and now you've got something going here.
She just happens to have bratwurst, and the guy next to me happens to have a grill, and we got a tailgate party going on 270 all of a sudden.
Yeah, that guy's got beer. You got a baseball and glove. I mean, this is the way the world should work. People working in conjunction with one another for a greater cause.
I can't argue with that, man. That's, we're coming up on the 4th of July. That sounds like life in America right there, man.
Yeah, it should probably just be life all over. But yeah, that's where we live, so sure, I'll take it.
So what, you said you're making a change here. What else are you gonna do with your schedule? I know you're trying to optimize things over there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's different about us is I always try and control time, and you seem to control like sequence of events.
Yeah, for sure.
So you are, I know once you say you get off work, you just forget about time. Basically, as long as you're back at work at X number or whatever, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whereas I've always been, I guess, more rigid, probably to my own downfall, but, really trying to get a bird's eye view on the week as a whole, and have some control over morning and evening rituals, because, things just go much quicker. I mean, I remember when I was in college, I used to be able to I'd get up, make coffee, iron my shirts, oddly enough.
Yeah, I used to do that.
Iron my shirts and pants, hop in the shower, and be out the door, and I could do that in about 20 minutes. It was So from the moment I sprung up, I could do everything I needed to do in 20 minutes. But now it probably takes me an hour, hour plus. And I mean, I'm not necessarily saying your morning needs to be a heart attack. You got to blast through everything. But the more ambitious I become, the more things I'm trying to do, the more I realize I do not have time for these little mundane events in my life anymore, and got to start trimming the fat. So, what do I actually intend to trim? I think it's just like the overall philosophy of doing things. If I get up in the morning and I don't have like an absolute clear purpose and execution of events, I mean, maybe I just like get up and kind of sit on the couch for a minute and stare off into space, and like that's a very valuable thing. I'm not necessarily negating that, but trying to understand that some part of me needs to do that, and then structuring it, and then knowing when it's time to snap out of that and then get on to the next thing. So
yeah, sure.
I've been skipping breakfast for 15 years.
As long as I've known you, I think.
Long before it was popular. And I generally eat my first meal around 2 or 3, but it's never been a problem. But I am trying to eat breakfast just because it seems like, I don't know, it seems once I kind of got in the habit of doing it, but the problem is I wake up, I don't really want to eat anything other than the only way I can convince myself is to eat some meat. So,
yeah, sure.
Now I know in different cultures, we have our breakfast food, our lunch food, and our dinner, but in other cultures, I know in certain Eastern cultures, every meal, it doesn't matter, they'll eat the same thing for breakfast that they eat for lunch, which I think is actually kind of genius.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
So, rice, soup, meat dish, all the side dishes, vegetables and stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, why fix what's not broken, if it tastes good?
Sure.
It's kind of one of the problems that we have, and, talk about spending energy. If I go to the store and I want to buy some laundry detergent or something, there's like 50 different options.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't give a shit. Just give me the one that is going to get my clothes clean and has the least impact on the environment.
Sure.
That's the cheapest. And, some people probably only care about 2 of those things, but, look at me. I'm impressive.
You're concerned about all 3 of those things.
I'm concerned about all 3 of those things, but
you're very special.
Yeah. My mother was right. I am special. Look at me. I'm such a great guy.
Oh, Jesus.
What are you, ordering a turkey sandwich? Snap out of it, you stupid jerk.
Oh, man.
But, so yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to save energy wherever I can. I mean, what do you think are things worth considering? Because, I mean, you've probably got that dialed in better than anybody, so I'm open to suggestions.
Well, mine is, I don't know, if I was any more routine-based, they'd have to lock me up, I think.
I mean, your routine's pretty incredible, and do you look at that as like a discipline? I mean, we can go into what that is, but is it a discipline thing for you, or that's just your natural behavior?
It's hard to say because I've been in this pretty much same routine for 15 years or something, so it's hard to say at this point if that originated with me forcing it or if that was just kind of what happened. Because now I don't even think about it. I don't have to force anything, just whatever, my day consists of is the same every day, so I fall into that pattern very easily, but at the beginning...
Let's take if we were to look at a half hour, say when you get home from work, and we looked at a half hour of your day.
Sure.
How many of those would be exactly the same? Like, what percentage would you say?
Very high. Very high. The only thing that changes, generally speaking, in my day-to-day, let's talk Monday through Friday here during the work week, because things, tend to do their own thing on the weekend, but, Monday through Friday, especially, the only thing that changes is what time I sit in to paint, because sometimes after work I'm a little more tired and I decide to take a nap, or I need a little more time to transition, or whatever the case might be. So sometimes I'm starting painting at 5 o'clock relatively early because I'm feeling good and I'm fired up about it, and sometimes it's like 9 o'clock when I sit down to paint. So,
but it's a mood, art. There is a mood. I mean, I know you're not a huge advocate of things being inspiration based, and as much as people can hide behind that. Oh, I'm not inspired right now. Sitting down to work is actually probably the most important thing, and work produces work.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think there is a general mood that is in the air that you just know how that feels.
Yeah, for sure.
And, what's the downside? Suppose on days that you didn't start till 9, what if you forced yourself and said, I'm going to start at 5 regardless? What do you think the impact of that would be?
To me, it would be...
I can guarantee it wouldn't be good.
No. I would have to assume, and I never do this, so I'm guessing here, but I would have to assume the work just wouldn't be happening, and if it was happening, it wouldn't be happening in a way that made me happy.
So, I mean, I think that's the important thing to remember is we have these, transitional moments in our life between, say, from our morning routine into work and then once we leave work or our lunch. These are important moments that need to be handled with care because there's a remainder of, stress and tension. Even if we enjoy our work, it doesn't mean that it doesn't take something from us. And there is a necessary process of wiping the slate clean to open up the door for certainly artistic activities, but I think any number of things. Because if you preemptively do it, if you start too early,
mm-hmm.
It kind of brings in a bad remainder from other activities.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it would make the day more frustrating, ultimately, in terms of art making.
Yeah, and that's why the only thing that changes in day-to-day is what time I start working, because sometimes I need a little bit more time to get myself together, or to separate myself from the day place, or,
mm-hmm.
to take a nap, or to go do some exercise, or whatever the case might be. Sometimes I'll need more time. Sometimes, like I said, I'll be feeling good, I'll come home from work, and I'll start painting right away. It just depends. But the point is that every evening, at some point, I start working, and I work until I get to a reasonably good place to stop.
Sure. So, I mean, it sounds, those transitional moments are, as we said, pretty important. And one of the rituals that I'm trying to adopt here, and, ritual meaning just a repetitive pattern that I do over and over without... Once I've set what that behavior is, then I'll just do it without thinking about it because I've already decided that that's optimal for me.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I want to get home from work and I need to change my state, music lives in a different universe. And I don't want to, I need to leave, earthly things kind of behind, I guess, to be esoteric about it.
No, for sure.
But I found, I'll get home, take my shoes off, strip to the buck. I head straight to the shower,
Yeah.
And I like to shower in the dark. I got this, little light. It's, like a little overhead fan. And it's kind of like a twilight blue. And, I'll spend, 15 minutes or whatever in there. And a lot of times I do prefer ice cold showers. And that's something I've done for a long time. But I'm not opposed. I'm warming back up to the idea of a hot shower. Used to be kind of a disgusting thing, but I'm starting to see the joy in it again.
This is years in the making here.
Yeah, I can definitely recall calling you and being like, why would I ever take a hot shower again? I'm all clammy and disgusting.
You know what I just read before we started this? I was looking at the rituals of some great artists online.
Oh, okay.
And apparently I thought this was the most interesting one. Victor Hugo, author of Les Mis and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he, in the afternoon every day, part of his ritual was to, and I would love to see this setup, but it said, there was a solid block of about an hour, I think, where it said, ice bath on the roof.
Awesome. Yeah.
I would like to see what that looked like. Like, he literally had a bathtub on the roof of his house, or if he lived in an apartment building, or what kind of setup was going on there, but I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, to go off on a tangent, getting enough ice is a problem because I store, 2 blocks of ice in my freezer that I just fill up a Tupperware, like, at night. But, it's not even, I can get that water down to about 50 degrees, but, I'd have to be going to the grocery store, like, every day and buying, like, bags and bags of ice.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be quite an expensive endeavor if I wanted to get below that.
That's true.
But, yeah, if I go for the ice bath, I'm not necessarily recommending anybody actually do this.
Yeah.
And if you do, you start slow. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
And just jump into something you aren't ready for.
Well, sure.
But, yeah, going into, like, an ice bath or a cold shower after work, and, I like to have the lights off. I'm very comfortable with that environment. Again, if you're not, then don't do that, or let somebody know that you're doing that. Cause,
Safety first.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know, but don't overdo it. And, yeah, I like to, go under the water, and, I mean, your heart slows down, I can literally hear the blood, like, coursing through my veins, and I can hear the beat of my own heart, and you're very focused in a way. I mean, it's essentially a meditation.
Sure.
And, 10 minutes of that, or, 5 or 20, depends how I feel that day.
Yeah.
Listen to what your body's telling you, and you adjust accordingly.
Well, it's like old-fashioned cryotherapy there.
I'm not really familiar with that.
Where you go, like they're doing it now, a lot of athletes are and stuff, where you go into a tank, essentially. Some of them are full body, and some of them you leave your head out of it, but it, like, drops you, and you stay in there for, like, somewhere very short, like, between 1 and 3 minutes, I think, and it's, like, minus 200 degrees or some crazy crap.
Huh.
And the theory behind it, I guess, is that when your body feels that cold, like, it instantly thinks it's dying, basically.
I'm sure.
And it pulls all your blood to your internal organs to keep you alive because it thinks it's going to freeze to death. And then you stay in there for a short amount of time, and when you come back out, basically your body realizes that you're not freezing to death, and it floods the rest, it floods your blood back into your body. And I guess that has, benefits on healing and, tissue and ligaments and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I know the basic premise of that, and, I just know I feel better. I know I have more energy, but I know that it has a very, like, cleansing effect in terms of wiping away stress and whatever you've accumulated that day, and it's kind of like hitting the reset button in a very significant manner.
I could see it like just kind of slowing things down for you,
Yeah, so I mean, I do that, and then I get out, and I'll just kind of, another thing that I think, air baths, it's not something we really talk about very much in this country.
Yeah, what the hell is an air bath?
Oh, an air bath, that's where you're just like, I think this comes from India. I'm not entirely sure, but I know yogis and stuff are into them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're essentially just exactly what it sounds like. You're just letting, like, air blow over your body and just, kind of getting in tune with that sense.
Is this
And
just like literally laying there, or do you need a fan, or what's
I
happening?
mean, I stand up with a fan
Mhm.
and just tune into this like very subtle perception of the air. But yeah, just kind of air dry. And I used to put in something I really enjoyed, like closing the door of my bathroom so no light is like really getting in there,
Mhm.
and then putting in earplugs. And I mean, again, this is just what I do. Maybe somebody else has a totally different ritual, but I found like when I get tired, my hearing gets like very, very sensitive.
Mhm.
And, somebody's voice, it can like literally sometimes want to push me over the edge.
Sure.
Like, or like a loud sound can like really startle me. So,
Sure.
but it fatigues me. And I found like, yeah, sitting there while I'm kind of warming back up and air drying and just having no visual that entire time I was in the cold shower or ice bath, and then no hearing coming in, no auditory stimulus.
Mhm.
Like when I come out, I feel very, refreshed and kind of replenished. And now, put some clothes on and, I'm kind of warming back up, and I feel like it's literally resetting my day.
It's like that. Yeah, it's like sensory deprivation, and then it's like a light switch. You can turn stuff back on, and you're in like a different frame of mind or something.
Yeah, I mean, you had kind of said you thought it would slow everything down, which it does, because it just makes me incredibly conscientious of what I'm doing and
Sure.
like my next steps. So I think it.
Well, plus I assume it's like a physical recharge too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't do things just to do them. If this wasn't supporting me in some way, then I wouldn't do it. Just because, it's odd.
Well,
That's not. Just because it's odd is not a very good reason to do something.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Time is limited. It better be effective.
Yeah, absolutely. But kind of exploration of some of these things, I think, is what I'm advocating. And then, if you find that works for you, great. But, how often, what I really want to focus on is, in my own life, is what am I doing and why am I doing it and how is it supporting me?
Sure.
In short, does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't make sense, then, I can take one process at a time and then break it down and ask if it makes sense. And if not, then can I find something more effective to do?
Yeah, I mean, you could start tweaking things from there.
But I definitely feel that one ritual is something I used to do quite a bit of, and I've kind of gotten away from it. And I thought, why did I stop doing that? Because I had already decided that was optimal for me.
Sure.
So there's things that we know are optimal for us, and then we don't do it anyways. And and I really have been using this couple different things for. There's an app called Headspace, which is a really great meditation app. For anybody that wants to get into that, I'd highly recommend looking into it. If I'm kind of feeling a little lazy in the morning, I might fire one of those up because they got, a series of 10-minute meditations that I think are really great to kind of de-stress and focus your energy. But I've really been a big fan of the morning qigong or yoga, and I think I'm going to try and get something like that going again.
There you go. Good way to start the day.
Yeah, I've only worked in an office for a short time, but I'm starting to think that maybe sitting for 10 hours a day isn't good for you.
It's not ideal for the human body in any sense.
So I got a standing desk going. I'm trying to kind of alternate, a few hours, I probably get a 50-50 ratio through the course of the day. But, so I feel pretty good about that, but definitely carving out those moments, and I don't know that I need to wake up and do a full hour-long routine, but if I can take, 10 minutes and do some Qigong and waiting on my coffee to steep anyways,
Sure.
That's just time well spent.
Sometimes I'll do some poses, go through some stuff that I know for my back and core area, especially, sitting in a chair most of the day. I'll do that, for a few minutes before I shower sometimes in the morning.
And I think anybody that knows us well, I mean, I remember when you had initially came to me with yoga, this is 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you are not new agey in any way.
In any way.
In any respect, would I say you're new agey?
Yeah.
I am in probably some respects, but I live on the West Coast. What are you going to do?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
But, and I remember, being quite, taken back by it, because at the time, we were both in a metal band,
Mm-hmm.
This is something that was very outside of the world that we lived in, and I don't think yoga had really taken on its popularity level that it has now.
No, and certainly none of the people that we knew or none of our little group, were doing it or talking about it, that's for sure.
Not at all. Not at all. And, yeah, I'm almost certain it hadn't taken on its popularity, at least, not in the circle we functioned in.
No.
And, now there's a yoga studio on every block, and hey, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
If people can do anything to combat in a gentle way, or sometimes not so, more intense way, the hell that the modern world is wreaking on their body and mind, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I remember you had come to me with that a yoga DVD because your back had gotten fucked up.
Yeah.
And I remember being kind of intrigued by it because what I know about you, which is just like the same thing that I just said. If this didn't serve a very important function, then you wouldn't be doing it.
No, wouldn't even think about it.
I mean, as I kind of said, you probably have the lowest tolerance for nonsense of anyone I've ever met. So the fact that you were open to that idea and, were advocating it, I thought, hey, this is probably worth checking into.
Well, at that point, I was in my early 20s, and I was throwing my back. I don't know if you remember, I used to do it a lot. And there'd be times where I used to, when I was living with my parents, I would have to lay on the floor, and not because I like to do that, but I would have to lay on the floor for days at a time, basically, because I would throw my back out, and I wouldn't be able to really do anything because it hurt so bad. And then one day I did that, and I went to get up out of bed, and I could not stand up. I was going to call into work, but I couldn't even get to the phone. I tried to stand up, and I almost passed out, and I'm like, that's it. That is it. I've had enough of this shit,
Mm-hmm.
So I got myself moving that day somehow. I took some ibuprofen or something, and got myself moving, made it to work, and then on my lunch, I went down to Barnes & Noble and bought this weirdo-looking, rubbery Hawaiian Asian dude, whatever he is, riding a yi, doing some yoga, and I'm like, this looks crazy, and I feel ridiculous buying this, but I'm gonna.
Do you try and convince somebody else to buy the DVD for you?
I bought
underage kid trying to get beer. You're like, hey, can you buy this for me?
I bought Terminator 2 with it, and I said, oh, this yoga's for my girlfriend. It's her birthday. I don't know what she does with this crap, but
yeah.
But I came home and I tried it, and it started working. I'm like, well, that's all the proof I need right there,
And then, probably from that point on, I mean, whatever animosity you had maybe initially from buying that, as soon as it worked, then you weren't shy about advocating it to somebody else.
No, I don't even care. Like, if somebody's in pain, I'll say, hey, I used to not even be able to walk for days at a time, and I used yoga and fixed it, so you should definitely look into this,
And I'm not saying it can fix everything, but it can fix a lot.
Oh, for sure. Well, most people, when they have aches and pains, just from everyday life and, office stress and all this kind of stuff. They take zero action to correct that, to offset that. They just want some doctor to give them a pill, and
it's terrible
to fix it. And they won't be proactive at all about it.
That's the whole thing. Like, I've met so many people who are like, oh, my back. And I'm like, hey, I tell them the same thing you told me. Hey, there's a yoga DVD that can help you. You can do it in the comfort of your own home. Take you about 20 minutes a day. This can help you.
Yeah.
This can reset things or at least improve them in some degree.
Yeah.
The spine's a very complicated thing. I don't understand anything about it, and I don't want to give false hopes.
Well, this can't perform surgery, but,
Yeah, but I mean, for the average person that's just kind of their deteriorating body is, going to shit more by the day as a result of office life in the modern world.
Yeah.
Yoga fixes basically everything.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, I have been an avid weightlifter for the last, few years at least, but the last 2 years especially, and, not really pursuit of strength. That's all I cared about. I want to get as strong as possible, period. And, I hadn't really been doing anything else in terms of, like, conditioning or any kind of stretching routine or yoga or anything like that. I do Qigong, but that's more almost mental for me than physical.
Sure.
And I would say it helps a lot with coordination and balance, but whatever the case, I hadn't done any yoga, and, I returned to yoga probably 2 weeks ago and did a routine, and one, I couldn't believe how difficult it was, because I thought, I'm stronger than ever now. Certainly I can hold up my own body weight. This shouldn't be a problem.
Sure.
It whipped me bad. It whipped me bad.
I'm sure.
In a good way, because when I was done, I felt very restored. I could feel the rusty shittiness that had taken on my body becoming more supple. And it's like,
yeah,
man, this is, anti-aging right here.
For sure.
And, I really like those type of workouts because you feel leaving refreshed. Whereas, if you do a day of deadlifts or squats or something, it's just like draining your central nervous system. You're like, I got to go take a nap for the next 3 hours. No.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why that dynamic is, but it's definitely so.
Well, that high level of physical exertion, like even in intense yoga, it's very different than going in a gym and hitting the weights,
Yeah, and I mean, not even all weight programs will do that, but I think when you're getting up into the upper percentages of a max, honestly, I think your body's just thinking it's going to die or something. Not to be like super dramatic about it, but our body doesn't know that we're in a weight room doing something for fun. It knows, hey, I'm under extreme distress right now.
Sure, yeah.
That's all it knows.
Yep.
And
I'm under stress. These muscles are getting ripped,
Yeah, and it doesn't know if you're trying to, take out a saber-toothed tiger or if you're, trying to, just, do a squat in a gym somewhere.
Well,
so
that's true.
I think trying to, and I suppose if I had more time and energy or maybe a greater impetus, I would like to understand why the body and mind does what it does and how that relates to what we do biologically, but one, I'm not that smart, and two, I don't have that kind of time.
I think the time crunch is probably the main, that's stuff that you could definitely learn, but,
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting that deep into it would require quite a commitment, I would think.
That was an attempt at modesty, King.
I understand.
But, so yeah, that's something I'd like to pepper in, because that's the more I think about it, I have to make, as much as we're all busy and we all think we are, really the essence of this whole conversation is cutting the bullshit, the fat out of your life,
Yeah.
and then focusing on things that are going to support you. And, I feel like any investment I make physically is going to pay back 100 times fold. I mean, it's amazing how many people say they don't have time to work out. It's like, okay, well, that's your choice, and you can do what you want, and I'm certainly not going to shame you about it. But it's going to catch up to you.
Well, for sure. And I don't think most people aren't, most people aren't any more pressed. I don't believe that most people are any more pressed for time than either of us, but...
Oh, they're full of crap, yeah.
Most people do not have any kind of time management or, skills or reason to do that. Like, as an artist, when I started painting or playing guitar or whatever it was, like, I'm on a crunch. I only have a certain amount of time during the day that I can paint. So if I don't focus the rest of the time around that, then I'm screwed and I'm not going to be able to paint at all.
Yeah, I mean, having those kind of pillars of activity, those blocks, I've wasted a weekend or two in probably more than that, just kind of doing absolutely nothing because I didn't have anything planned.
Yeah, we all have.
And, but there's times where I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm doing X, Y, and Z at this time to this time, this time to this time. I mean, I can completely kill it on Saturday and Sunday if I structure my time properly.
Sure.
And I mean, it only takes just a little bit of preparation, but you do have to have clarity on what it is that you want to do. And if I have that, then I find I'm much more likely to pursue things I want, and especially physically, because I know I need to do this now or I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not going to be doing deadlifts at 10 o'clock at night.
Probably not a good idea.
I know there's people that do it. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, we're designed to be up when the sun is up, and we're designed to be asleep when the sun is down.
Yeah, for sure.
No rocket scientist, but I think I figured that much out.
Yeah, that seems like an obvious one, but a lot of people don't function that way, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's something that I know everybody does. I guarantee 99% of the people listening to this do this. And you don't, because you don't own a cell phone. People sleep next to their cell phones.
Yeah.
Like within a foot away from them.
Yeah.
And then they'll give you some bullshit about, oh, well, that's my alarm clock.
Right.
Okay, well, your alarm clock shouldn't be that close to you anyways. Why isn't it across the room where you actually have to get up to turn it off?
Absolutely.
Just like all our fathers told us when we were kids growing up.
Yeah, that's one I figured out a long time ago, because I'm like, if I have my alarm clock right next to me, I'm just going to turn it off and go back to sleep,
Well, the other thing, I mean, okay, so you've got this device that's shining a light right in your eyes in the middle of the night. You wake up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, kind of halfway asleep, halfway awake, and then you shine a light in your eyes, and then you're, messing around on the internet. Like, You think that's supporting a good night's sleep?
No.
It's totally disrupting what you're doing, and that light vibrates so fast that your body's interpreting it as sunlight.
Right.
Like, they have things that block, blue light is what it's called, but that vibration is waking you up. It's turning over so fast, your body thinks it's sunlight, and then it releases cortisol into your body, which is a stress hormone, which wakes you up. So there's a ritual right there that I think anybody would be wise to incorporate, which is, why would you sleep a foot away from your phone? You're not the president of the United States. Like, nobody's calling you at 3 o'clock in the morning, and if they are, then wake up, walk across the room, and tell them to fuck off.
Yeah. I always said, if you're going to call me after 10 o'clock, somebody either better be, somebody better be giving birth, or somebody better have died. Otherwise, I don't want to hear from you,
Yeah. With that said, I'm sure I've blown your phone up after that time many times. No.
Well, how many times have I answered it?
Well, very few.
Not on a weekend. I always get a kick out of people. I don't know if you've seen this because you don't mess around on Facebook a lot, and I haven't been on there in a long time, but you used to see this once in a while. People would, it would be late at night, and they'd post something like, I can't sleep. And it's like, well, you're playing around on Facebook. Of course you can't sleep. But if you say that to them, they'll say, oh, I'm playing around on Facebook because I can't sleep. And it's like, maybe, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a chicken and the egg here,
I mean, that's completely, like, people, if we all look at that objectively, we know that makes no sense.
Of course.
I mean, just be honest with yourself about it, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of different things. If you can't sleep, I mean, I used to have a philosophy, if I wake up, then I'm getting up.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what time it was. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning. If I'm waking up, then I'm getting up.
Sure.
I've kind of steered away from that a little bit just because, trying to survive through the workday when you're getting up at 2 a.m. can be a problem.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I mean, there are things you can do that would support you far better than messing around on Facebook.
Yeah, no doubt.
Get up, drink a cup of tea, read a book, do something, keep the light low. You can get up and do some light yoga or some qigong or something. Take any number of things. I've done some evening walks in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I love evening walks, by the way.
For sure.
But you got options. And, I mean, you just keep it super light and slow-paced. And I think any one of those activities would support you better than messing around on your computer.
Or
your phone or whatever.
No doubt.
But, so that's exactly what we're advocating is analyzing illogical behaviors.
Yeah.
This is just one of them, We've pointed out some others, but I don't know. What about you, King? I mean, is there anything... You had mentioned that grocery shopping is one thing you don't have on lockdown.
Yeah.
Anything else come to mind that doesn't make absolute sense?
I
mean, I've got a laundry list of about 1,000 of them, but,
I can't necessarily think of anything else. I mean, the only other thing that I could point to is I have a tendency, depending on how my week is going and how things at the day place are going, I have a tendency to come home and take a long nap, and then I'm up a little bit later than is optimal, and then I get in that pattern where the next day, because I was up later, I get home from work and I'm tired and I have to take a nap, and I'm in that pattern. And I don't know that that's an optimal way to do it, because not only do you have the long nap in the evening, but then you got to give yourself some amount of time to wake up, and then you got to force yourself into the art area to paint, and it's a little more difficult.
Well,
but
the thing is, I mean, knowing what I do about you is, we've been talking for 15 years, so yeah. But you sleep very, very little. I mean, and you're not just one of those people that says, oh, I got no sleep last night. You don't wear it as a badge of honor or anything.
No, certainly not.
Well, I was up all night. It's yeah, that actually means you got 6 hours of sleep instead of 8.
Right.
People are so full of crap when they're like, oh, I didn't sleep at all last night.
I've gone to work before not having slept a wink at night a couple of times, and those have been some of the worst days of my life.
But you know how people will say that?
People say it all the time.
Because they want you to think, oh, I'm so hardcore. It's yeah, you're getting so much done that you didn't even have time to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm going to just go off on a limb and say that's probably not applicable to most people.
I'm calling your bullshit. Show me what you were doing all night.
There are probably people who are like that, but that's not sustainable, first of all.
No, that's few and far between.
Yeah, if you're working on Wall Street or something, okay, yeah, maybe you are doing that, but, the average person, they're just I don't know exactly what they're trying to accomplish with that statement, but you generally only sleep about 4 or 5 hours a night, right?
Yeah, I'd say that's fairly common.
I mean, so, a nap. I mean, if I get under 7, I'm gonna be a jerk. It's pretty much as simple as that. Like,
Sure.
I need 7, 8, 9, and I definitely found, lifting heavy weights affects that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But if I go less than that, it's my mood and mental performance is going to go down significantly. Where it just doesn't make any sense for me to be up.
Sure.
So I mean, coming home and crashing and taking a nap is, as far as I would be concerned, absolutely necessary.
Yeah, it's not a terrible thing. It's not necessarily the most optimal way I could function, but I'm all about, and I've always said this.
See, I don't know. Sorry to interrupt, but I don't know that it's not optimal because it's supporting your art making, which is probably, you care about that more than anything else. So, it takes a tremendous amount of energy, mental, emotional, physical, to create art. It is demanding.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think a nap right before that makes complete sense.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, in some sense, on paper, that doesn't seem like the most optimal way to function, but I have always been of the opinion, especially when it comes to art making, whatever works. And if you're seeing results, then that probably is the optimal thing. And my results speak for themselves. I mean, I've done like 180 pieces this year, for God's sake. So, something's working.
Well, I wanna state a quote.
Here we go.
Artists must suffer for their art. That's why it's called painting. Frank Reynolds, everybody.
That about sums it up there.
But completely ridiculous. Derivative, bullshit.
He's the best.
Oh man, So yeah, I think there's, trying to instigate too much change too quickly is something that I really struggle with. So I think the best thing that I can do to implement this is to take one thing and examine it, and then if it holds up, great. If it doesn't, then I do something about it.
Yeah.
And striving for what is optimal. And doing this where I can, like I said, I don't think sitting for 10 hours a day is real great, so I did something about it.
Mm-hmm.
At my work, so I probably stand half the time and I sit half the time. And I kind of alternate throughout the day.
Sure.
That was something that I felt was within my power that I could easily change for minimal cost that I feel has a pretty big impact. And it's hard to say, why sitting has such a terrible effect on your body, but I find my energy levels a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one instance, but I mean, there's probably, without using hyperbole, there's probably 30 or 40 things else that I do, that need to be examined.
Sure.
That are worth examining to say, is this optimal for me, and why does this make sense? And if it doesn't, then what am I going to do about it?
Well, I mean, that's a good way to get through life and to grow, is to constantly be examining things and evaluating where you're at and how you can get better.
Well, the other thing, too, is, I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm very disciplined, but I'm also very lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I'm both of those things. It just depends which one is turned on and which one is turned off.
Yeah.
As I kind of have said in the past, I'm either a 0, meaning I'm doing absolutely nothing, or I'm a 10. I have problems with the middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to keep thinking about this stuff. I mean, I don't want to think about how many times I should go to the grocery store. I don't want to think about, is my morning events in an optimal sequence that makes sense to get me, in a good mood, properly caffeinated and out the door. Like, for I think over a year, probably like a year and a half, I had a campaign where I just I found out my grandfather wore white shirts.
Yeah, I remember this.
And I love the past, and in a number of facets that we won't go into, but my grandfather only wore white work shirts.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was genius, because I thought, okay, so he's got like 50 of those in his closet, and he never has to think about what to put on ever again.
Yeah.
And I did that for about a year and a half, and I only wore long sleeve white shirts.
Yeah, I remember that.
And yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
What was interesting is like the fact that color has an effect on your mood. There were times where I was feeling pretty black metal, and I wanted to wear a black shirt.
Sure.
So when that, I had done this for a long time, and I had done it to simplify my life and to help me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I kind of found that restriction started to become like oppressive, and then I started to move away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was mostly mood based. I could easily go back to it if I wanted to. But, that's a mundane thing. What am I going to wear today? I don't know. Just give me some clothes and I'll put them on, and hopefully they don't look terrible.
Yeah.
Who wants to look terrible? Nobody,
Yeah.
But I'm just going to chalk this up to any woman that I'm with is going to be responsible for trying to coordinate my outfits, because I can't do it. No.
You're like, I got other shit to think about. You pick out my clothes today.
Yeah, I mean, it's they're probably, in many instances happy to do it because
Definitely.
they want the man that they're with to look good, and clearly I don't know what I'm doing, so let's work together.
Well, if it was reasonable, we would both probably be dressing like Tolkien, but that's not always the most reasonable thing in the modern world.
Yeah, I mean, sadly.
3-piece tweed suits and whatnot.
Yeah, 3-piece tweed suit in St. Louis, Missouri in July. You wouldn't make it a day.
I wouldn't make it into March with that, and I'd suffocate to death.
Yeah. Yeah, but I will definitely agree with you there. I'm in absolute support of dressing like old English professors.
Yeah, sure.
If such a thing were financially feasible or practical in terms of temperature.
Yeah, for sure.
But I still don't know how they survived the summer, or if they did.
I think they were just really uncomfortable, and they were just more in tune with, or more used to being that way or something. I don't know.
Well, they were men of letters.
That's true. Maybe it's like cows in a field. Like, they don't know they're in a fenced-in field because they've never been out free. So maybe they didn't know that they were uncomfortable because they'd never been walking around in shorts and a cut-off t-shirt.
Well, just an insight, since I do work on a farm on the weekends, and I work on a farm where cows do roam in a field that's fenced in, and they got about 80, 90 acres, something like that. Cows actually love boundaries.
Interesting.
They hate change. No animal that I've ever met hates change more than a cow.
Interesting.
Talk about repetitive ritualistic patterns. Yes, that is a cow.
So I'm like a human cow.
Yeah, you're like a human cow.
Oh, shit.
We were trying to milk this cow, and it always went through this kind of gate area and then it turned to the left. But one time we had set it up so the cow needed to turn to the right. and the cow just stood there in a blank stare for about 15 minutes until it had decided, okay, I'll go right. Because it had always gone to the left. It didn't know why it went to the left. It just did.
So it really had to contemplate whether that was the thing to do or not.
Yeah, and I guess at some point it decided it was favorable. But, so I think, I love nature and I support nature in every respect. And I don't know that cows would be super happy in absolute freedom grazing territory. They are not explorers.
Well, there's something to be said for limitations, I suppose.
Yeah, it helps Stravinsky,
Well, I've talked about it before, how some of my most unproductive weeks are my vacation weeks because I have all the time in the world. Like, those boundaries can be good for you.
Yeah, Leonard Bernstein said, in order to write a piece of music, you need an idea and not quite enough time.
Brilliant. One of my favorite quotes.
And it's absolutely true.
For sure.
Because, yeah, I think when I look back to my most productive periods in terms of composition, were actually probably the times where I was the most busy.
Yeah, I believe it.
And times where I would look and say, it's not even feasible to be trying to do anything else at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow managing to get it done. So,
yeah.
Well, one thing I think is interesting, I've tried to be a morning person my whole life, and I'm not one.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
You've definitely You've definitely been trying it for a long time.
Nobody has tried and failed to be a morning person more than I have.
Yeah.
Every morning is renewed hell.
You like the idea of being a morning person, it's just you can't properly execute it.
Yeah, and I mean,
and when you can, you're not happy.
No. But and we've kind of talked about that in the past. It doesn't really matter as long as you're using the time that you have optimally for you. That when you're actually doing it is inconsequential.
Absolutely.
You could be getting up at 4:00 in the afternoon, covered in a shirt, with nacho cheese all over it, your hair all messed up, and clean yourself up and start killing it.
Hey, whatever works.
It really depends, but the more I get kind of pushed into, I guess, the societal norm and working world and its behavior patterns, you're going to be a morning person whether or not you want to be or not, period.
Yeah.
At least 5 days out of the week.
For sure.
For most people. But then kind of clicking it forward a couple notches. And, I used to have a friend that say, I don't get up to go to work.
Mm.
Like, yeah, I mean, they made it to work on time, but their reasoning for getting up was not going to be to go to work. So they would specifically go out of their way to get up earlier to have something positive to engage in, because rolling out of bed and going straight to work was not real cool.
No, I can't do that.
So, I mean, what does your morning ritual look like, and why is, what does it look like?
Well, I live very close to work, so I don't start work until 7. I could probably realistically leave here at 6:45 and be at work on time without any problems ever. And, I could, in theory, take like a 2-minute shower. Like, I could get up at like 6:30 and have no trouble whatsoever getting to work at 7. But I chose a long time ago.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, that's what most people would do, I think. But I chose a long time ago, maybe not thinking in the way that I'm not getting up to go to work. I wasn't thinking that at the time, but I chose a long time ago to not have to rush through my morning because I do not want to start my day like that. And I want to start my day doing something I enjoy. So I get up at 5 in the morning, and That's like an hour and a half before I would really need to. But I take that time to make something to eat, and I usually sit down and put an art documentary on and have something to watch, and reading something, or even if I'm
just kind of background noise.
Yeah. Or sometimes I'll pay more attention to it. Sometimes I'm messing around online a little bit. Sometimes I'm looking at some art, either online or in a book. Like, I'm taking that time for
my fair amount of reading in, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm taking that time for myself to ease into the day with things that I like. And then after a period of time of that, I'll take a shower and get ready and go to work. But
do you find that helps motivation-wise to get up, because you don't want your morning to suck, and you're like, okay, if I get up a little earlier, I can focus and make things a little bit more comfortable for myself?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's most of my motivation for it. Like, I do not want to get up, hit the shower, get dressed, and go right to work. Like, that is not how I want to start my day. Mm-hmm. I don't like being a time crunch. I don't like being rushed, and I don't want the first thing that I really do in the morning to go to work.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of ritualistic behavior, what's the breakfast looking like?
Oh, well, it depends, but a lot of times I'll go some kind of sandwich, or sometimes some eggs, or sometimes a burger or something. Usually there's some kind of protein involved, though. Pretty much
burger,
always.
Burger or sandwich for breakfast?
Absolutely.
Is this a nod to Asian cultures and rejecting the idea of breakfast?
No, I love breakfast, and I love breakfast food, but it's more about, again, time is limited, and in the morning, I especially feel like I don't want to spend a lot of time, like, cooking. But I don't want to eat crap like a bowl of Frosted Flakes. That's not going to do anything for me. It's not going to give me any energy. It's not going to be, it's not going to do anything for me, so I'm not going to do that. But if I eat, like, a nice sandwich or some eggs or even a burger in the morning, yeah, that little boost of protein will fill me up a little bit and get me going, and I won't have to spend a lot of time with it.
So the point here is, you experimented and you decided that was optimal for you, and then you execute that.
Absolutely.
Which is ultimately what we're advocating to ourselves, and anybody that cares to listen, hey, we're all for it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I've found, as somebody who's skipped breakfast for 15 years, if I wake up and I eat bulgogi, which is like a Korean meat, and it's the most delicious thing in the whole world, I recommend you go out and get some right now. But it's a beef, and it's like marinated in kind of a red spicy sauce and garlic and onion and stuff, and I don't like breakfast, but I will get up and eat that stuff, no problem. And
sure.
I feel great, you know. And for the longest time, I didn't eat because I thought that was better. I thought it gave me better performance, mental performance. And I would get, super caffeinated, wouldn't eat breakfast, would eat lunch at like 3 o'clock, and like very jittery, right on the edge of anxiety. I mean, my entire college career was spent in that manner.
Yeah.
And most of my 20s certainly operated by that philosophy.
Sure.
Kind of jittery, a feeling most people do not care for.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, I'm like, I was like a whirlwind of energy, but I realized that it lacked focus. And kind of in a scramble, running around with your head cut off was not optimal.
No.
So breakfast, meat, specifically for me, and everybody's different, just because that's what we eat doesn't necessarily mean that's what you need to do. Maybe you feel better on some light fruit. Maybe you get up and, eat a salad or something. I'm not advocating one way or another. Decide what works for you.
Well, yeah.
but I always wanted to avoid that heavy feeling in the morning, which is why I didn't eat breakfast, because I thought it would just put me to sleep. But the brain power you need to use throughout the day, I mean, requires calories. Like,
yeah, for sure.
50 to 60% of your calorie intake just goes to keeping the lights on, keeping you alive. And ultimately, I can say my mental performance is way better if I eat breakfast.
Sure.
And it's a personal choice. But, yeah,
I think our point with all of this is, testing things, seeing what works for you personally, and implementing those changes so you can function optimally. I mean, we know John Barbaroli, one of our favorite conductors, would eat like one meal a day at like midnight, right?
Yeah, great English Italian conductor, and yeah, he was a workhorse by anyone's imagination, and he was known to just eat the one meal in the evening, and I can't argue with the results.
Yeah, I couldn't function like that, but the point is, it worked for him, and he did it for basically his entire life, and that guy was as productive as anyone. So
absolutely,
gotta find what works for you.
But yeah, Barbaroli, great conductor.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man.
I should. Any select recordings from him that you appreciate?
Dude, his Mahler 9 with who's he with? Berlin.
That's not even his orchestra.
No, not even his orchestra. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. One of my favorite recordings I own.
I thought I'm a big fan of his Sibelius 2.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's Sibelius 2, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a guy that I think is really interesting, because for our listeners that don't know, let me inform you, and that's fine if you don't know. It's an opportunity to learn something. This conductor, John Barbaroli, he was known the world over, and he was considered a genius and an icon in his own lifetime. Could have had any orchestra in the world he wanted.
Yeah.
He was getting offers from all over. New York wanted him. They were willing to pay him any amount of money that he wanted.
Yeah.
Instead, he goes to the Halle Orchestra, which is this small provincial orchestra in England, and built them up to a powerhouse. But, they were not even considered a professional orchestra, if I remember correctly, at the time that he took them over. These are players out, this is not a world-class orchestra, and he built them into one.
Yeah, by the time he was done with them, they had an international reputation, they were making a lot of recordings and doing all kinds of stuff.
So, why do you suppose he did that? Why not go for the money and the glory of New York? Why push yourself out into, this provincial orchestra in England?
Well, I don't know his personality. Obviously, I never met the guy, but you have to assume that being creatively minded and, artistic, I just assumed that he thought that was the best setup for him. He could stay, where he wanted to live, and he didn't have to deal with the bullshit powerhouse that is like the New York Symphonic, orchestra, and he wouldn't have to deal with all the responsibilities that came with that as far as fundraising and tours, and with this orchestra, he could do what he wanted. He could set it up how he wanted it with minimal interference, and why not go for that?
That, and I think it brings up a good point of, that was probably somewhere around where he lived, and he wanted to have an impact. Everybody that is really ambitious, often we think of trying to have the largest, farthest-reaching impact we can possibly have. And that means some kind of national level or global level. And the more attention, more important. And, a guy like that took the exact opposite route.
Yeah.
And decided to invest in the community that he lived in and make a change there. And oddly enough, in doing so, he achieved that wider spectrum as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a guy that I'm really into. His name's Jim Wendler. He's a strength coach, I guess you could say. Probably one of the most famous books is Wendler 531 on powerlifting. And, he teaches volunteers for a high school football team in, some small town in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
World-class strength coach and successful power lifter. And, I would have loved to have a strength coach like that growing up as a high school kid, you know. And you would think that would be kind of an odd thing for him to do, but he lives in a small town in Ohio, and he's making a contribution in the community in which he lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's pretty commendable.
No, I think it's awesome.
And not something that we really do much of.
That's true. The average person doesn't anyway.
I don't know that I'm putting any foot in that direction myself, but it's really easy to think on just the largest scale and before we've even had an effect on our own community.
For sure.
And I know you've done some things like with your art and stuff. You had some paintings in over at one of the hospitals in area there.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how many people have spent much time in hospitals, but they're not much fun.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason you're there, and to have some color, some vitality, a window into a different world, which is essentially what a painting is.
Yeah.
Is I personally think it's a brilliant idea, and it makes me wonder why hospitals aren't doing more of that for starters, and just why it's not just saturated in our lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I work in an office, and I can't tell you how much bad corporate art I've seen.
Oh, I'm sure.
The most derivative piece of crap, not interesting, push it through an assembly line type art.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it's like, I could pick up a rock and throw it and probably hit an artist better than this.
I'm sure.
Right now, I could walk out my patio and probably throw a rock and hit somebody that could make a piece of art better than what's on this wall.
I believe it.
And why are we comfortable with that compromise? Who's making that decision to put this piece of crap on the wall, first of all?
Mm-hmm.
And clearly they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah. So
why wouldn't we just defer to somebody who did?
It's a good point.
Hey, everybody's got their own talents. I understand that. Some people, certainly corporate-minded people might, and, this is a broad generalization. It doesn't have to be this way, but it might be. Might not completely value visual art and its impact on what it could bring to a space. But that's fine. Hire somebody that does know that.
Yeah, for sure.
There's plenty of starving artists out there that would love to advise you.
Yeah.
Definitely. But we just don't value that that's even important enough to consider.
Well,
if that's the case, then why hang up anything on the wall? I would rather look at nothing, look at bare walls, and, admit the fact that we don't value art rather than try and bullshit me and put this corporate piece of crap up.
Well, I can't disagree with that, but, Billy's, man.
Yeah, Billy's.
They're all around, and some of them are making decisions. Unfortunately.
Well, I don't expect everybody to know everything about everything. That would be ridiculous,
Well,
They
yeah.
might know some things, and probably a lot of things I don't know. But why not just play to your strengths,
Sure.
And then, defer to somebody that knows something that you don't know.
Mm.
I mean, it's kind of like we were saying with the grill, bratwurst, and the baseball glove. Let's work in conjunction with one another and really get this going.
Yeah, for sure.
But trying to think of some other instances of things like that. Music in the grocery store comes to mind.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
I gotta say, on more than one occasion, I've been in a grocery store, and the shittiness of the music has inspired me to finish my grocery shopping more quickly.
Well, maybe that's serving a useful purpose then.
That's what I was wondering. Is that what they're trying to do? Is push me out of there as quickly as possible, and thus, keep the fire code intact, or what?
I'm sure that is the opposite of what they're trying to do, but if we can use it to our advantage that way, why not?
I mean, what's the maximum occupancy for a grocery store? They can't have too many people lingering in there.
Well, true, but they want as many people in there for as long as possible, I'm quite sure.
It seems to me they should probably, if that's the case, they should probably consider handing out some kind of, joint when you first get in there and get people really stoned, and then they can just stumble around a grocery store for like 3 hours.
Well, that's not possible in all areas, but I'm sure they're exploring options like that somewhere.
Here in Oregon it is.
Yeah, sure.
I personally don't partake. It's not something I enjoy, but hey, somebody else wants to, knock yourself out.
Sure.
But I think, if I owned a grocery store, that is by far the best way to, one, sell things, and two, if you're trying to keep the maximum occupancy of people in your grocery store, that's probably the best way to do it.
Probably so.
Just stupefy everybody, and you can spend an hour and a half debating what kind of cheese that you want to put on the sandwich that you're going to craft for yourself.
It's a good idea. I'm sure somebody's listening to this and going to implement it at some point.
Perhaps we can team up with New Seasons, or do you got New Seasons out there?
No.
Okay, New Seasons or Deerbergs or some major grocery store chain.
Sure.
This is $1 million idea right here, and I just want to say right now, I want financial restitution.
This is one of your better ones, and I think you deserve full credit for this one for sure.
Yeah, and I can be quite litigious, and if I don't get a check in the mail, I'm just saying we're going to court. I want it documented that this was my idea.
This is a verbal patent for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, we need to timestamp this.
No.
July 2nd, 2017, 1:30 a.m. West Coast time.
When I upload it online, we'll have proof of the time and of your concept here.
Yeah, hey, we were talking about optimizing. It doesn't just mean just for us and our own personal lives. We're into helping out our community. I want to help the local business owner.
Absolutely, yeah. We want to help the grocery store thrive by sending it throngs of stoned people.
Yeah, I'm supporting the working man here.
Why not? Not to mention somebody had to grow that weed and cultivate it, and we're about creating jobs here.
Yeah, it's changing the face of everyday life.
There you go, man.
And, while we're on that subject, can I just point out, can we make any uglier buildings than we're currently making right now?
It would take some effort.
These big box, brick and mortar places that are so full blown. Can you make yourself any more obnoxious? Everywhere we go, it's the same shit over and over. Spaghetti factory, Chili's, blah, 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 blah. All the big Best Buy, all the big box stores in a concrete grid.
Yeah.
I mean, how uninspired can you get?
They don't put a lot of thought into aesthetics, I don't think.
I mean, yeah, age of consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, there's definitely... Do you feel like the typical weekend is people going out and shopping for things? Is that what most people are doing on the weekend?
To be honest, I have no idea what most people are doing. I don't think so. I mean, sometimes, yes. Sometimes I think that's true. And I think more people tend to be out shopping because they're working during the week, if for no other reason. But I think people, especially if they have kids, have other things going on, during the weekend.
Soccer practice.
Yeah, for sure.
Spelling bee.
Visiting the grandparents, whatever.
Yeah, that's cool. But, certainly, I'm not a minimalist. I don't think I'd classify you as a minimalist either. But I am very conscientious about things that I buy and bring into my home because I know that once it enters the front door, its chances of leaving are probably pretty slim.
Yeah.
And I move a fair amount, and I still have a hard time getting rid of stuff.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's hard to say why that is. I mean, there's some deep-seated psychological reasoning that I don't understand, but and haven't really attempted to understand with any great effort.
Sure.
But objects, I read a quote once that said, "Possessions possess." And I'm sorry, I don't recall who said that, but
I like that.
It really is true. I mean,
for sure,
things stick to us in a way. I can go pick up a coffee table for $10 at the local, Goodwill. You would think it wouldn't be a problem trying to get rid of that. I mean, it's a piece of crap.
Yeah.
But I'm just using a hypothetical example. I am almost certain that some part of me would feel odd about getting rid of it.
No, I'm sure.
Why is that?
That I don't know, but once it's kind of in your place and part of the landscape of your home, it's difficult to get rid of.
I recall helping my parents move in a house that they had been in for 20 plus years, and the amount of stuff we had accumulated in the basement and stuff was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Things that were not actively used, and but I mean, who wants to spend the amount of energy to go through that stuff?
I told my parents when they die, I'm just gonna burn their house to the ground. I do not want to have to go through...
That's a comforting thought. I'm sure they appreciate that.
I do not want to have to go through like 35 years worth of shit.
Is that part of the honoring your parents part?
Well, you honor them while they're alive, right?
Yeah.
After I die, if somebody wants to burn this place to the ground, more power to them. Just get my paintings out of here first.
I'm going to recommend anybody that heard that is, I'm going to offer some free legal advice. Not, what do they say, not admissible in court. But
sure.
I believe King lives in a structure that's bound together with other people's homes. So I think there's a pretty good chance that you just burn other people's homes to the ground as well. And therefore, I'm gonna make a determination that is a poor choice now.
You could potentially burn 10 places to the ground, so knock on a few doors before you burn my place to the ground.
Yeah, see if you can get a petition to from the other 10 people to see if this is acceptable or not.
Just get everybody out. Hey, I got a fire to set. Don't worry about it. It'll all be done soon.
But yeah, there's got to be an easier way.
Well, perhaps.
But yeah, couldn't you just get an auctioneer in there and get them out of there and maybe get a paycheck out of it?
Well, I'm going for some fun here as well, you know.
Well, I've never lit a structure on fire before, but I guess you only live once, right?
Yeah, I've never lit anything the size of a house on fire, but I would have to imagine it would be kind of fun. Especially if you knew nobody was there.
Yeah, alright.
You didn't have to worry about killing anybody. There could be some enjoyment out of that.
I think that might be against some city ordinances that we're not really aware of. But it's kind of, that actually brings up a pretty good point. It's your house, it's your structure. If you want to burn it to the ground, who should be able to stop you?
That should be my right, yeah.
Kind of like wearing a seatbelt, although I wear one and I think it's a great idea and, you're an idiot if you don't.
Of course.
But if I want to go flying through the windshield, that's my business.
If somebody wants to ride their motorcycle cross country and never wear a helmet, more power to them.
Again, I would go as far as to say it's a pretty stupid choice, but
yeah, I think it's a absolutely stupid choice. If you hit a little pebble, you're dead. But if that's the choice you've made, go for it. It's not bothering me at all.
Well, I think it's saying, yeah, hey, we have confidence in our own ability to make decisions, and we don't need somebody else doing it for us.
For sure.
As long as it's not harming anybody else.
Exactly.
Then what's the problem?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to argue with that.
I can't argue with it.
But, I would recommend getting that Pink Floyd record out of your parents' basement before you burn it.
They got a Pink Floyd record in their basement?
They used to.
I'm pretty sure either Kevin or I have stolen that at this point.
What?
Well, we're not just going to let a Pink Floyd record sit in their basement without, taking it and enjoying it. Both of us have record players and listen to records on a regular basis, so...
I'm not a particularly religious man, but from what I understand, thou shalt not steal, king.
If you tell them, then it's okay.
Hey, I'm taking this. All right.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
Open stealing.
I'm pretty sure there's something in the Bible about letting Pink Floyd albums lay around unlistened to.
And how that's not considered
that's the 11th,
honorable thing? No.
That's the 11th commandment.
Huh. All right. Yeah, I wouldn't know, but you don't want to break one. Reasonable.
You don't want to break one to spite another one, so.
Yeah, fair enough. But I gotta say, I woke up this morning and was drinking some coffee, only to realize that I was out of butter.
So no butter for your coffee.
Nightmare scenario, dude.
If people are unsure what you're talking about, you put butter in your coffee.
Oh, yeah. The, bulletproof coffee. I didn't invent this, and I think everybody's probably had it at this point if you're an avid coffee drinker. But yeah, I go, get some coffee going in the French press every morning. Doesn't have to be in the French press, but I found that to be optimal for me.
Sure.
Despite the time involved. Then I go, I'd say a good tablespoon of butter. And then some coconut oil, which is incredibly delicious.
I don't know about all this.
And you can blend it up and get it all frothed up. I like to use milk from the dairy farm that I work on, which is raw, unpasteurized milk. Highly recommended.
Gross.
Full fat, full cream, delicious goodness from age-old practices of farming.
Ugh.
And get that blended up, get all nice and frothed up. You get a little mocha action going, and a lot of people will do that as their breakfast because something the high fat content I guess is fueling your body up. I know it's pretty big in like paleo circles and people that are into high fat kind of diets.
Yeah.
I'm not really into that. I just, I'm not into that either.
Sure.
Yeah, I just do it, and yeah, it tastes great. So
why not?
And apparently, remember when we were growing up as kids, like everybody told you that like butter was going to kill you.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that everybody was actually wrong.
It turns out that the fake butter will kill you 10 times faster than real butter.
Margarine will kill you. Yeah. Growing up in the 90s, that's all we ever heard about how you shouldn't eat fat and it's going to give you heart disease. And
yep.
Turns out doing things the way nature intended is better. So you trying to make bullshit butter and calling it margarine is not as healthy as just doing it the way nature intended and eating butter.
Sure.
So, and that seems like a age-old dictum. The further we get away from the natural order of things, the more screwed we are.
I can't argue with that.
We had talked about getting up when the sun's up and going to sleep when the sun's down. The further we get away from that, the further your circadian rhythm gets off, the more screwed up you're going to be.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
Not that I need to point it out, but, people always say, oh, if you really wanted to be healthy, stick to the outer perimeter of the grocery store, which is what?
Fruit?
Yeah, you go to a grocery store every day. You should probably know this.
Fruit. Well, the one I go to is fruit on the one end, and the other end is like dairy stuff.
Well, it's all vegetables and meat.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, meat along the outside. Yeah, for sure.
And then all the stuff in a can, a box.
Yep.
AKA where you spend all your time.
Not true.
The Chef Boyardee aisle is where King lives permanently.
That's definitely not true, but I do love some Chef Boyardee.
God, I wouldn't feed that stuff to my dog.
Well, your dog doesn't eat that well, then.
I won't be looking for any Chef Boyardee sponsorships. I'm just, if you send a case of that to my house, I will not accept. However, Nikasi Brewing, you're always welcome.
Chef Boyardee, if you want to send some cans my way, I'll eat it right out of the can. No filter, no heat.
It's disgusting individual.
This podcast this is a good one.
Are you preparing for like possible life on the rails or what? Traveling hobo style?
It's good, man. I don't know.
Well, I mean, no heat element right out of the can.
It's pre-cooked.
Okay.
You don't need to cook it. People always say, you're going to get a disease, blah, blah, blah. It's cooked already. You're just heating it up so it, in most people's eyes, it tastes better, but, that's a matter of opinion.
I mean, I eat a lot of cold food. Cold pizza. The best thing to do if you're going to eat a pizza, order it. Shows up at your door. Take that pizza. Don't eat it.
I disagree with all of this.
Piping hot. Don't eat it. Put it in your fridge. Let it sit there for, I'd say, till tomorrow's breakfast. Now we're talking.
No. You got it all wrong.
Now you've got an ice cold pizza, and now you're talking optimal pizza eating here.
You got
You
it all
never have
wrong.
to worry about burning the roof of your mouth ever again. We've all done that.
That's part of the pizza experience,
Knowing that this thing is too hot and then biting into it anyways and burning the roof of your mouth is part of the pizza experience.
Yes. And if you can do it while you're driving and then get sauce and cheese all over your car, even better.
Is that the optimal driving?
You go for the first piece at least while you're driving. That's how you eat a pizza. I ate about 3 or 4 while I was driving yesterday.
I want to get our listeners' views on this. Go ahead and put in the comment section thoughts on eating piping hot pizza while you're driving. This seems like a terrible idea.
It's a funky adventure.
Knowing full well that you could fly off the road at any moment, you gave it all up for a slice of pizza is a funky adventure. I agree.
Most people playing on their cell phones is way more dangerous than eating a delicious piping hot pizza on your drive home.
Well, I'm not advocating that either. I remember being on 2-lane roads in Montana and watching, some 16-year-old girl texting on her phone, going the opposite direction, and just thinking how terrifying that was, and it could all be over.
You are going to slam into a moose hard.
Oh, man. I can't even tell you. I never hit a deer, and it was amazing, because it must have truly been an act of God that a deer never got hit with me driving, because I never saw so many damn deer in my life.
I'm sure.
You literally wouldn't want to drive after dusk, because your chances of hitting a deer were so high.
Sounds terrible.
So the smartest thing to do is just don't drive in Montana 30 minutes before the sun goes down, because it's gonna happen.
Follow your circadian rhythm, man. Be asleep at that time.
Any idea, I'll have to wing it, but I recall reading about this. Any idea when, the light bulb, if you were to guess when the light bulb not came into invention, but became part of somebody's everyday life? Any ideas?
I would have to take a total guess and say, I don't know, late 1800s, early 1900s?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Somewhere in there?
Yeah, I think,
I'm sure it was invented quite a long time before that, but...
Yeah, I don't recall, but what I do know is I think they had lit up an entire London street around 1900, something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
But there were places that, into the countryside and stuff like that didn't get electricity up until the 1950s or even later in some instances.
Yeah.
And I recall talking with my grandparents about this, where they had one light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
When they were kids.
Crazy.
But I mean, we had a windstorm here not so long ago. The lights were out for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
People were panicking.
I'm sure.
Oh my God, what are we going to do?
Ah!
I was at work. I had just gotten there and the lights were out. People were walking around aimlessly. And some guy came up to me and he's like, yeah, it's our quarterly meeting. What do we, I don't work for this company, but he came up to me and he's like, yeah, it's our quarterly meeting. Now what are we supposed to do? I'm like, I love it when nature asserts itself in that way. Guess what? Sure. Nature doesn't give a shit about your quarterly meeting.
No.
Okay?
Have your quarterly meeting later.
Yeah, it's
nobody cares.
People were, on the phones calling. We had 150,000 outages.
Mm-hmm.
People were blowing up the power company. When is this going to get fixed? Everybody is on standby. Had no idea what they were going to do with themselves.
I'm sure.
But I mean, think about we can laugh about it now, but it's really just sad, the amount of tension and anxiety and people's unwillingness to shift gears into a more agreeable mode.
Yeah.
I think I sat outside on a bench. We got like a little garden back there. I was the only person out there, as I always am the only person out there.
Mm.
Because who would want to sit in a garden and drink coffee for 15 minutes while they weren't working? That would be stupid.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. So I hang out back there all the time. And, I think I sat down, watched some birds sing. The wind was kind of blowing through the trees, and drank my morning coffee, and life went on.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
I actually ended up doing a workout in the dark.
Sure.
Because they had the storm lights, which are like battery powered. So I thought, I'm going to knock out some squats real quick.
And
it was awesome. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily advocate anybody else do that, but I spent enough time in a rack to basically navigate it by in the dark.
Sure.
So I knocked out my workout, and then I went home and played cello and read, and onward and upward.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I mean, my guess is for several hours, people sat around the office and talked about how they can't believe that something like this could happen. I mean, am I the only one that sees the ridiculousness of this situation?
No, but most people don't stop and think about it.
I'm wondering, like, what if the power went out for a week? What would that do to people?
I don't even want to think about it.
Well, you got cans of Chef Boyardee uncooked, so you're fine.
I got all kinds of food. I don't even need to cook.
I don't know. I mean, in some ways, I think it would. I think it would have some benefits.
Well, yeah, I could see that.
The pace of life in general, I think, what I'm truly advocating, has gotten very ridiculous.
Definitely.
And the speed at which it's moving and the speed at which we're making compulsive decisions, ultimately, I think is very destructive.
Well, that's been the underlying message of most of this podcast, I think.
Absolutely. Slow it down, find out what works for you, experiment.
Start making them changes and getting things in order.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like this is the end.
This podcast is over.
Dead air!
Oh, man.
Well, I'll bid you adieu, and you want to sign us off here, King?
Thanks for those of you who are still listening, and be on the lookout. I will break this podcast up throughout the week a little bit, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Take care.
Peace.